Ms. Feinberg, congratulations on your nomination. It's nice to see you here again. As you know, Montana is home to nearly 3,200 miles of railroad track that moves our ag commodities, record amounts of crude oil, coal, and other manufactured products across our rail system every day. In fact, we export the majority of our energy and ag production. 80% of our wheat harvest goes to Asia, and most of that by rail. Last summer, there were challenges to rail capacity and delays in shipping some of our goods. Our phones were ringing a lot of concerns about this. This year, I know that Burlington Northern Santa Fe has made significant investments in Montana to increase capacity, enhance safety, and we expect smooth and efficient shipments of this year's harvest as well as other commodities. Additionally, we've got the infamous Amtrak Empire Builder that runs along Montana's High Line, providing much-needed transportation and connectivity for our rural communities. In fact, last year, nearly 120,000 people boarded and alighted Amtrak trains in Montana. I recall as a kid hearing stories about how my great-grandparents would take passenger rail from Shelby, where the Empire Builder stops there. That's how my family got back and forth when they first, in fact, came out to Montana a century ago. Needless to say, it's imperative to Montana that we continue to move these passengers and commodities in a safe and efficient manner. So my question is going to be probably the same horse we've been beating here during this hearing, which is regarding PTC. We all saw in the report released yesterday, the GAO has recommended again that Congress extend the December 31st, 2015 PTC deadline. The largest railroad in my home state in Montana is BNSF. They've been working diligently. They've invested $1.5 billion. In fact, and another $500 million investment is planned to implement PTC across the nation, including on the nearly 2,000 miles of track in Montana. As we all know, this deadline is approaching. The Senate Highway Bill contains an extension on a case-by-case basis. I think we must continue to move passengers and commodities in a safe and efficient manner. Without these rail connections, we are in big trouble in Montana. So my question as Administrator, what would you do in the immediate future to ensure our railroads do not come to a grinding halt on January 1st, 2016, beyond the threat of fines?
Well, Senator, it's good to see you again. I cannot give the railroads individual legal advice. I don't think that's an appropriate role for the FRA administrator. We have said as clearly as we can possibly say that we will enforce the deadline. I know that many railroads are considering not operating starting on January 1st because they will not be in compliance with the PTC law, but...
Would you have your cell phone? We could forward the calls from Montana to you so you could take them?
Oh, sir, I am getting the calls, yes, okay. But I'm happy to take yours as well, yes.
I'm talking from the people of Montana, because the phones will be ringing. This will be a crisis. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I am also worried about the crisis that could ensue on January 1st as well. We have tried to be as clear as we can possibly be. We will continue to try to assist this committee and the Congress in any way that we can as you contemplate the possible extension of the deadline, and we will work with you in any way that we possibly can.
Yeah, so we're down to about 100 days, plus or minus. There's something called Thanksgiving in the way. There's the Christmas holidays, so the time is of the essence, and given everything else going on in this town that tends to be crisis-driven, it'd sure be nice to avoid yet another crisis-driven event.
Sir, I completely agree. I do not have the authority to extend the deadline, and the Secretary of Transportation does not, and we will work with this committee in any way that we can, but are not able to do it ourselves.
In your testimony, you mentioned there's a $1 billion loan from FRA to New York's Transit Authority to help implement safety measures. Often the focus of passenger rail is on the Northeast Corridor, and I understand the reason why, because of the dense populations. But it sometimes perpetuates this urban-rural divide that we see across our country. As Administrator, what efforts would FRA take to ensure that passenger rail service is not diminished in rural America, places like Montana? What loans are being made available to passenger rail in these rural areas?
Well, the RIF program is certainly available and is frequently sort of gets the most interest from short lines, which tend to be functioning in these rural areas. As a West Virginian, as someone from rural America, I can tell you that I'm a strong supporter of the importance of passenger service between rural areas. We are working closely with Amtrak all the time. Look, the Northeast Corridor is important. It's 50 million people. It's $100 million a day in economic impact, so it gets a lot of attention, but it in no way takes all of our attention, and we are super laser focused on the state routes as well.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Feinberg.
Thank you.